Hi, Barbara. I didn't see you that you popped in. I can't hear you.
Said good morning.
Morning. I didn't see that you popped in. I was just busy with a few things here.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we don't have many people, but we'll just go with it and then see. It's going to be recorded and it's live streaming on YouTube as well. So hopefully people will join in as we go through the program.
Sure.
Are you guys back at work yet, or
Well, we've worked all the way through.
I
We're
meant
just working
like,
from home at the office.
okay.
No, we're anticipating July 6th, but it's voluntary basis. Um, Half of my staff works remotely anyway because they work across the province. So we only really have one small office here in Edmonton.
Mhm.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll get started in about 2 minutes. So
Sure.
yeah, I'll let you get back to. Okay, Barbara, if you're ready, we can get started. I think I have you still on mute. On mute.
Here we go.
Okay. So, good morning and welcome to Offbeat Talks with Next Evolution Ventures. Our guest for today is actually Ms. Barbara McKenzie, who is the CEO of Business Link. Good morning, Barbara. How are you doing?
Good morning, Alex. I'm well.
We'll just get straight to a few things and then the format for today is essentially we'll have a conversation with you. We have some quick fire rounds where you essentially don't have much time to think. We're just going to shoot questions at you. Whatever comes to your mind, just pop up and say it. We'll try and keep it as business-like as possible, but an opportunity to get to know you as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you're the CEO of Business Link right now, about a year, I believe.
Exactly a year, June 10th.
And so just share with us your personal story and how you got involved with Business Link.
Well, I realized in the last little while that I've actually been an entrepreneur since I was about 11 years old. And my dad was an entrepreneur. So, Business Link was kind of a natural evolution of my career. My technical background is marketing and communications. That's what I took in college and university. And I worked in that field for many, many years. But a big part of what I did every time I went into a new organization is I rebuilt their marketing and communications departments. So I discovered a love for kind of transitioning organizations and transforming them or fixing them when they were, a little bit broken, or building them. So, I owned my own business for 10 years while I was both in university and beyond. And then I switched to the corporate environment and worked on these transformational projects. So Business Link was kind of the next evolution of that. It's an organization that continues to evolve over the last 25 years. So that's really exciting. And being able to support entrepreneurs is really important to me. So it was a natural fit.
So tell us a little bit about your leadership style as trying to get a little to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I do not like to be micromanaged, so I don't micromanage. I think that's the most important thing. I'm really of the philosophy of you hire really smart people, probably people that are smarter than you, and you empower them to do their jobs and do their jobs well. Give them the tools that they need to do those jobs. And I think I've really, wanted to instill that throughout my time as a leader. I find I have an amazing leadership team at Business Link. We are 5 very dynamic women of 5 very different backgrounds. And it's become a really strong team that's able to make a lot of change and do a lot of good.
Good. What would you say are your 3 biggest accomplishments till date in Business Link, or even before that?
Oh, biggest accomplishments. You know what? I always think the next goal is right around the corner, right? Like hindsight is always 2020. And I think I've had the opportunity to do some amazing things along the way and really build some great organizations and win some awards. But I think, there's always something more to do. I mean, I think you always have to be on top of things and look at what's going on out there and what's disrupting the economy. So, accomplishments are great, but I think you need to move forward, constantly be moving forward.
Okay. So I know you talked about initially that, Business Link seemed to be the right fit for you from the get-go because of your entrepreneurship from the age of 11. But I'm sure that there has been some rationale behind all your career moves as you got to the position that you are. Tell us about some of your positions and what made you move into those positions, and how did you figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You always have a career goal in mind. Mine has for a long time been leading an organization. I knew that's where I wanted to go. After being an entrepreneur for 10 years, deciding to move into the corporate world was really very strictly based on my personal life at the time, and raising a family and that sort of thing, and needing a bit more stability and that in my life. So, I really took the opportunity to look at what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to take a leadership position in a marketing and communications role because that was really my expertise at the time. Once that kind of happened, it allowed me to think a little bit more about what I wanted to be as an organizational leader. So, I had the opportunity to leave the role that I had as Director of Communications at Alberta Pensions Administration and move on to a role as the Managing Director for the Law Information Centers with Alberta Justice, which was really, really interesting because that allowed me to take on a leadership role, build something from scratch, and do something in an environment that's really quite interesting, which is working in court services at the Government of Alberta. And then, I got to move into a really great role at ATB, working as the brand manager there and working under Dave Mowat, and the leadership team there was a phenomenal experience. But also made me realize that, I liked smaller organizations. I really did prefer working with smaller organizations where I kind of knew more intimately the organization and the people. So that really did lead me to take on a VP role at Goodwill, restructuring their marketing department and bringing a new focus to that. And after 4 years, I knew it was time to leave. And I really knew that as I kind of extended my career into marketing communications, I'd grown beyond that, and I was really looking for a leadership role. So I was lucky enough to take on the executive director role at Leduc-Nisku Economic Development Association, which was a fantastic organization, a great bunch of people to work for. Really enjoyed that. And that really led me to BusinessLink, and the CEO role. I continue to run my own businesses. My husband has his own business that I'm a partner in. I have a global export organization that I head up the Edmonton chapter of. So, it's a bunch of different things combined, but leading an organization, especially in times of transformation and challenge, is really where my passion lies.
Yeah. Oh, wearing several hats in several positions over the years. That's great. Tell us a little bit about BusinessLink and about the programs that you run through BusinessLink. I know there's people who want to know what's happening and things that are transforming out there right now. I know when you and I chatted, you talked about you wanted to take BusinessLink in a different lens, and I know that the work that you're doing has been like I'm a student from Anderson Career Institute with my self-employment program, and BusinessLink is a huge part of that as well. So it would be nice to tell us about the work that BusinessLink does and the programs that you run through BusinessLink.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, 25 years, this organization has evolved continually. And our key focus throughout all of that has been to support entrepreneurs to start, grow, and build their businesses. And I think that that's the most important thing that we do. What's really interesting is we're a provincial organization. We are a not-for-profit corporation that has two primary funding partners, Western Economic Diversification and Government of Alberta Economic Development, Trade and Tourism. And we've been really grateful for that partnership because that supported it for 25 years and allowed us to grow and continue to grow. I think the biggest things that we do is that we provide one-on-one, hands-on support for entrepreneurs where they are when they need it. And, right now, we've been able, because we always had these processes in place and we've had these really good opportunities, is that we have email, we have chat, we have a phone, opportunity to talk to people. Now we have video chat. We've always come to entrepreneurs where they are when they needed us. So you can call us, you can talk to a one-on-one support coach, you can get all sorts of information. We've always done a ton of events and educational seminars and coaching, and all of that has moved online. So we've been doing a lot of webinars, a lot of Instagram lives and Facebook live. And now we're building a ton of new tools on our website. So in September, we'll be launching an interactive business plan writer tool that'll really allow people to go through it with lots of coaching and support, and a lot of other new things. I think what's unique about us is that we're not specializing in any particular industry or type of entrepreneur. We're completely agnostic to that. We'll serve you no matter where you are in the province, what business you're in, what walk of life you come from, right? We are here to support you. And that's the unique thing about what we do. And then we have two really great programs. So if you're an Indigenous entrepreneur, we have a specialty program just for that. And if you're a newcomer or an immigrant entrepreneur, we've got a specialty program just for you, with all the same great tools as everything else, but a little bit different and geared to the special challenges that you might face.
So tell us a little bit about how this, when we talk about the crisis that we're having right now, it's not just the COVID anymore, it's the global crisis, the movement around the Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of things happening in the world at the same time. How has that all affected BusinessLink, and what has been your adaptation to this whole thing? I know you talked a little bit about going online, but.
Yeah, you know what? I think that as an organization, we were, I wouldn't say prepared, but we'd laid in the building blocks. You know what? I think as a leader, you have to be attuned to what's going on outside of, just your organization, and understand what you have to build and what you need to put in place in order to continue to evolve and move forward. So keeping that eye on the environment and what's going on has, I think, always, been something that I've looked at. And I think over the last year, we put a lot of things in place. Business Link's always been an incredibly diverse organization with a strong mandate towards diversity and understanding. So that's really standing us well right now. We really are passionate about that, and we really work hard to make sure we have that kind of equality in our workplace. When it relates to, what's going on in the economy right now, we know entrepreneurs are going to drive the future. Every business at its heart, whether it's a global corporation or the restaurant around the corner, has been built by an entrepreneur, right? I mean, a global corporation doesn't exist without having started by somebody who had a vision. And so who knows who the next global entrepreneur is going to be? We know that there are organizations and businesses right here in Alberta right now who could possibly create the next billion-dollar corporation. And so we need to understand and look at, what does that mean and how are we changing? I mean, technology is affecting everything. How is the business environment going to change? So we're consistently adapting to that. Yes, we're moving things online, but we're also assessing, what does that look like from the terms of hard office space, for instance, right? What is the technology our team needs in order to serve entrepreneurs? How do we get to that philosophy of where they are when they want to meet? And then what do we know? What do we need to know in order to continue to support them? So we have to have our finger on the cusp of everything that's going on. One of the major things that happened, right in March was, oh my God, how do I take my business online? So we quickly jumped in, working with really great partners like Shopify, to start saying, okay, here is, how do you build a website in a lunch hour, right? Like, how do you do this really fast? How do you get up a payment gateway? So we had to keep our finger on that pulse. And I think that's what's really important for us going forward.
Okay, that's an interesting thing, because you started talking a little bit about things that I myself have been looking at in terms of how do you look at pivoting as the organizations, like the environment around us change. And, we have one of the highest unemployment rates right now in Alberta. And there's a lot of people who have actually given up a little bit in terms of what their business has been, because they don't necessarily know how to pivot or change this one. Do you think Business Link does play a role in helping people look at their existing business maybe and trying to see how that they can help pivot?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I can give you a ton of concrete examples of what we've experienced over the last 3 months. I mean, we've had conversations with entrepreneurs who basically were like, I have to give up. I have to declare bankruptcy. I don't know what to do. And after spending, some time walking through, what is your business? What are you looking at? Like, who's your audience and all of that? Our coaches and our strategists have been able to turn that around and help that person pivot their business so that they're no longer looking at just shutting down and declaring bankruptcy. They've now found a different way to do that, right? So that pivot conversation has been the absolute conversation with so many businesses that we've had. We have so many interesting clients in so many fields. So we have people who are fitness coaches, and they were like, well, how do we do that? We're like, well, your clients are still going to need you. Just, we've got to let's figure out an online platform and how that's going to work, right? And how do you charge for that? We have a lady, her business is Art of Charcuterie, which, by the way, is amazing. I highly recommend it if you ever want to do anything. She moved to individual personalized charcuterie boxes for, curbside pickup or home delivery, in order to keep her business going. So lots and lots of examples. And the simple thing about it is, and that it has been for us, is when people pick up the phone and they start talking to somebody, and it's not somebody who's their friend or their family that's mired in the same experience, but a rational outside voice, just that conversation has led them down a different path, supported them, helped them, and keeps them moving forward, right? It's all about just having somebody to listen and talk to right now.
Yeah, that's very true. Um, let's go a little bit back to your career a little bit and tell us a little bit. I asked you about the accomplishments that you've had in your career. Tell us a little bit about the biggest letdown in your career so far and how that has changed your perspective on things and made you move forward.
You know what? You learn from everything, right? I mean, I think there's moments in every career where you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. And I've certainly had those. I think those are growth opportunities. They've taught me a lot. I mean, I've gone through some job changes and not all of them willingly. They weren't always all my choice. And you learn from that. That's a huge one. That's an eye-opening experience in your life, right? Where it's like, oh, what could I have done differently there? I think as a leader, I've done things necessarily that weren't always the right thing, right? But I've also grown from that. Where I've potentially handled a situation really badly with a staff member. But again, that's a growing opportunity. And you look back on that and go, wow, I could have done that really, really differently. So, I don't think there's been a huge letdown. I think there's been some disappointments along the way for sure. But again, if you can't frame those in terms of what did I learn from that, I'm not a hindsight as like a 2020 person. It's like, and I don't have regrets, I guess, I'm very much, okay, let's learn from that. Let's move on. And what's the next accomplishment?
No, that's a great advice, personally as well as for business as well, is to not get stuck in the minutia of things and just keep moving and learning from your mistakes. So thank you very much for that one. I'm going to get us into a little bit of a quick fire round here.
Sure.
I'm going to give you 5 questions here and see how you do. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. How would someone, no, let's do this one. If you had a movie made about your life, who would you want to play you in the movie?
Oh, good Lord. Nicole Kidman.
Interesting choice. If you could switch jobs with someone currently, who would it be and why?
Richard Branson, huge fan. Matt, yeah, he's amazing. What he's done with his company, it's so innovative. Richard Branson, 100%.
What's the fastest speed you've ever driven in a car?
I better not tell. I've gone fast. I've driven on European highways. So, when you're on the Autobahn, you better be going fast.
Fast, yeah. What are your 3 most overused words or phrases?
No worries. I say that a lot. It's terrible. I probably say thanks too much. I think, as a Canadian, super polite. And for people who know me personally, I have a bit of a potty mouth sometimes. So maybe some of those words.
Okay. And the last one on the quick fire for now is, when people standing up for a standing ovation, are you usually one of the earlier people to stand up or one of the latter ones?
I'm always one of the latter ones.
Good to know. Okay, so let's get back to Business Link and a little bit about the global crisis and what do you think now that you've been been a CEO for about 1 year, and I did see your blog, really good write up on how I really enjoyed reading it. So thank you for that. Tell us about your immediate plans, like 6 months to a year for Business Link, and then your long-term plans for Business Link.
Wow. Okay. So 6 months to a year, continue to adapt. I think continue to be flexible and nimble, and always adapt to whatever's evolving right now. A big one for us is recovery, and how do we support businesses through recovery? So, looking at what that looks like, what do those tools look like? The second part of that is really the team. And knowing where our team is right now and understanding the capacity we need to build, but continuing to safeguard our team's mental health. It's been tough. It's been a rough 3 months, and we've since day one had a focus on mental health, so we want to ensure we keep doing that. Long term, I mean, when you're an organization that's funded by the provincial and federal governments, you want to ensure that you're continually making an impact, that you're spending tax dollars wisely, and that you're really supporting the needs out there. So on the long term, it's always continuing our viability, and making sure we're building that impact out, making sure that the dollars are always available, creating some sort of self-sustainable organization as well, and building succession. I think that's really important. I think every organization needs to understand how to build succession, and not only at the CEO level, but throughout the organization. We have a lot of people that have been with us a long time and a lot of people who've been with us a short time. And we need to really build some of that organizational knowledge and succession.
Okay. I know you talked a little bit about the crisis in a way, but did you guys have to make any hard decisions? And what is the hardest decision that you've had to make within the organization? And how did you evaluate the trade-offs involved?
I think for us, the hard decisions actually came before. We had to make some tough decisions around reorganizing. We had done a reorg right before this happened. We work on a yearly contract basis, so that always means some people's contracts won't be renewed. So that's always, depending on funding and all of that. So that's always an interesting conversation to have. We made some really good decisions, right? We instituted a work from home policy. We moved all of our IT into the cloud. We've done some really good things. During this crisis, I think the hardest decisions are happening right now, and that's it. When is it the right time to return to work? Return to our offices? When is it the right time for our remote staff to start working directly with clients again? When is it the right time to start holding events and doing personal one-on-one interactions? And none of us have the answer to that. And it's all about gut feel and working with your team. So that's probably the toughest decisions we're going to have coming up for us.
Yeah, so that kind of answers my next question, but I'll still put it out there. Is what do you think are the challenges that you would face now that we're in phase 2 of relaunch, and people tend to go with does that mean COVID's gone and we're back to normal? So on top of what you've said, do you think you're going to face more challenges?
I think we will. I mean, I think we have to know how to react to a second wave. I think all of the signs and everything points to the fact that there will be a second wave, and preparing for that's going to be really important. What does that look like again? I mean, we're talking to people now who are starting to think about starting businesses, right? So we've seen a lot of people laid off. They don't know if their jobs are going to come back, so they're looking at what entrepreneurship is. So what happens when we have a second wave? How do we continue to make sure that flow exists and that people are looking beyond that? So that's probably the biggest piece of the challenge. I think for the other part for us is, we've been incredibly fortunate in the fact that we haven't had to lay off people. We're able to hire. We're seeing more dollars come into our organization because those business supports are so desperately needed. So our challenge is, how do we manage the amount of workflow we actually have? Because our workload has exponentially shifted, changed, and increased over the last 3 months. So managing our team, managing that workload, and then making sure that everything we're doing is what the need is today, that it's not based in what was going on 4 months ago, and that it's not based on projecting too far out either, right? Like, we're just trying to understand what the need is today.
Okay. I know you and I chatted a while back, and you mentioned that again here is about the hard office spaces and knowing when to get back in. My personal understanding and seeing how some of the organizations have moved has been towards actually remotely working from home, because a lot of people thought they couldn't work from home. Yet there's a number of people who are businesses who have realized that there's actually a spike in productivity when working from home, which could mean that hard offices may not be as big or of a retail area as we've seen in the past. What would your thoughts be around those components, around if businesses do try to shift away from hard office spaces and retail space, especially in the downtown core? Um, Municipal government depends heavily on tax base, and that means you're going to probably have ghost buildings across the downtown core. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we already have a challenge. I mean, before we went into this pandemic, right? I mean, real estate vacancy rates have been really high. We've seen lease rates come down. Landlords are really challenged, and that's across Alberta, especially in, Calgary, and Edmonton's been feeling that too. How do we rework those spaces? It's something we've looked at as an organization, and it's something I've seen. I just saw a really interesting post through my global environment not that long ago. There's an organization in India. They had to move everybody, obviously, to work from home. They realized they could do that. They've now decided to move 70% of their workforce to work from home permanently and close their offices. And they have about 100,000 people that they employ across India. So you can imagine the office space that's about to go up. I think it's going to happen here, and it's going to have such huge variables, right? I mean, it depends on what organization you are and how you work. We're still going to have to get together in physical spaces because that's where collisions still occur most effectively. We've looked at our space, and I've certainly believed that, we already, half of our team already works remotely. So could all of our team. But then how do we still create that atmosphere where people can work together, right? We're still social creatures. We still need to be connected. And this has made it very difficult over the last 3 months to keep that connectivity. We still want that physical, interaction. So do workspaces change to where they're more collaborative collision spaces where you go in for, a day, a week, and people get together and they do all of their collisions, and then they go back to their home spaces and put their nose down into their work, right? I mean, we have a call center, and we've proved people can work from home. We've moved to a voice over IP system, and, I mean, ATV has a giant call center. They're all working from home right now. So I don't really think it matters what business you're in. I think every business can work from home. It's the needs of the business that's going to have to dictate whether you can work from home or not. And it's how you still want to create those collisions for people within your organization to generate that innovation and that creativity, because that's still an important factor, right? And that personal social interaction, which is so good for people's mental health, is also still really important. So there's going to be balance.
So you said you had a very strong leadership team. So good for that. Good for you for having a good, strong leadership team. Where do you think are the areas that they required development, especially moving into the next phase and your plans for Business Link over the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, they're all so different, right? I have some people who have not been in leadership roles very long. So, there's a lot of development there for them to learn about how to be a good leader. I mean, first time I went into a leadership role, right, I had a lot of learning to do, and I made a ton of mistakes, and I had some great mentors, and I did a lot of learning around the way. So there's all of that leading. You need to learn, you need to know how to manage people, you need to understand finances, you need to understand strategy and all of those pieces. So I have some people who really need to dig into that. I have others who've been in leadership roles for a long time, but come from different cultures. So for them, it's learning how to manage in the Canadian context, in the Alberta context, and how to shift their style, and how to grow themselves personally in their careers. I said Richard Branson, I'd change, hats with him. And it's because I believe in his philosophies. And one of his philosophies is about, you know, what if you train people and they leave? Well, what if you don't and they stay? And I truly believe lifelong learning. So I want to train everybody in our organization to be the best possible leader they can be, whether they're at the grassroots level and they're answering phones, to, our leadership team. And if I do, and I do my job right, then they will be able to move on and take that next step in their career, or succeed in our organization. So yeah, I mean, they're all different and they've all got things they need to work on. But so do I, I mean, I'm finishing my MBA this year. So finally at 50, almost 50, I finished my MBA. So just proves you're never too old to learn.
No, that is true. That is true. I think, especially during this time, I think a lot of people are looking at going back to university and getting things back on in terms of seeing where they want to. Kudos to you for getting your MBA. So best of luck on that one.
Thanks.
Tell us 3 things that you like about your current job and 3 things that you don't.
Oh, well, 3 things that I love: my team. The people are amazing. Working at an organization where I get to support entrepreneurship, because that's such a huge passion. And the flexibility to really try new things. I think we're really looking at how do we shift, how do we change, and we're flexible. 3 things I don't, and I'll always say this: financials, financials, financials. I'm a marketer by trade. I'm not an accountant, so my least favorite part.
I will tell you, when I started my business, that was the first thing I did, was like, I called up my previous accountants from Mission and said, thank you very much for the work that you do, because I really don't understand this piece.
Yeah, I understand it. I just don't like it.
So can you tell us about a tough day you've had at work and how you pushed through?
Man, we always have tough days. I think, tough days are focus, focus on the end goal. What is that about? I mean, you're going to have challenges every day, and that varies so much. But really focusing on that end goal usually helps me tough through. Usually good conversation with my husband that allows me to like really vent and get it out. And that's how I work through things, is that I need to be able to just basically talk out loud through it. And that usually gets me to that rational conclusion somewhere. So that's probably it. Like, okay, what's that end goal we have in mind, and just being able to focus through it and never react in the moment. I think that's really important. I think, we're all sometimes can be keyboard warriors, and it's super easy to react in that moment. But if you're going to write that email, write the email in a Word doc, set it aside, come back to it an hour later, come back to it 2 hours later, come back to it the next day, right? Don't react in that moment.
Okay. Thank you for that one. I'm going to get back to some quick fire questions.
Sure.
Just to see how things are, and then we'll go through our last segment of our interview. What is the place that you've most wanted to travel to?
Oh, most wanted to travel to. Where do we want to go? I'd like to go to Budapest. My family's from Hungary, so yeah.
What's something you could eat for a week straight?
Nothing. I have to have variance in food.
If it could come from another decade or era, which would it be?
I've always kind of been obsessed with like Peter the Great, so I think that era would be interesting.
Interesting. If you could have any 3 people, dead or alive, over for dinner, who would they be?
Oh, wow. Madeleine Albright, Richard Branson, and Anwar Sadat.
Mm-hmm. Good. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Read people's minds.
Yeah, go on. Okay, so Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
I think it's wrong to be vegetarian, so I don't know.
Okay. What's the lamest dessert that people try to pass off as a dessert?
Fruit,
Uh-huh.
and I love
Name
fruit.
a name a book you read that positively shaped you.
Oh, wow. I read so many. I'm actually reading a fascinating book right now by Bob Iger, who is the former CEO of Disney, all about his leadership journey and what he believes. So how about that one right now? Because I'm finding it really, really interesting and it's teaching me a lot.
That's a good sim because I just finished a course on Disney as part of the disruptive innovation, and
Mm.
he played a pivotal role in that component. Name three of the seven dwarves.
3, Doc, Sleepy, and Sneezy. I don't know.
Yep, you're right.
My daughter's 21. I don't know.
Would you rather ask permission or beg forgiveness?
Beg forgiveness.
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Milk.
Window or aisle seat?
Aisle.
How many pull-ups can you do in a row?
None.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
None.
What's your favorite summer activity?
Going to my cabin and, being on the boat, swimming and tubing and kneeboarding.
What's your favorite movie ever?
Ever? Oh God. Gone with the Wind.
So now is a interesting one. Say good day, mate, in an Australian accent.
No way. Not gonna happen. I'm not good at accents. I can speak 3 other languages, but I'm not good at accents.
So I'm coming to the last formal segment, but it's what's the best piece of advice you've received till date?
Best piece of advice I've received. I think it's about being true to yourself. At the end of the day, the only thing that you have is your own ethics and, your own integrity. So be true to yourself.
And that's a good advice, like being true to yourself. I know you talked a little bit about this in your conversation about a lot of people who are out of jobs trying to start new businesses and so on. What would your advice be to people that are aspiring to start a new business in Edmonton or in Alberta for that matter? And what do you think that they need to do to try and establish themselves?
It's interesting because we've had a lot of conversations about this, and Marcella Mandeville, who's the CEO of AWE, and I have talked about this a lot. I think there's 2 things. Number 1, be realistic. Understand that you need to have skin in the game. Nobody's going to pay you to start a business. A lot of people come to us, is there a grant for this? Is there a grant for that? No, you know what? You need to put your own money into your business. I've bootstrapped every business I've built. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared to bootstrap it. I think the second piece is you have to be prepared to sell. If you're going to make money, you have to sell. You've got to sell something. Don't be afraid to ask for the sale. What's the worst thing somebody's going to say? They're going to say no, and you got to be prepared for the no. But I didn't run a business for 10 years without ever asking for a sale. Nobody ever gave me any money to do it. And I think you have to go into it with that open eyes and understand that it takes hard work. It's going to take you putting your own money into it, and it's going to take asking for that sale. You can't be afraid of that.
No, that's true. I think that's all the questions that I have right now. Do you have any final comments for us?
You know what? I think we all know this is really tough times right now. I think everybody's going through a lot. There's on top of, there's a pandemic going on. I think Alberta's seeing a lot of triple whammies right now. There's a pandemic going on. Oil prices have tanked. Mother Nature seems to be beating us down right now. And then every individual has things they need to deal with. We all have personal stuff as well that's going on in our lives. And it just seems it's a lot piling on right now. So I would say to everybody, whether you're trying to start a business or you've lost your job or you're just out there trying to figure it out, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, right? Find people to talk to, reach out. Don't ever be afraid to reach out. Especially as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, I know it's really hard to do that. And I have seen incredibly successful people that have been friends that struggled with that took their own lives, and it's awful because if they just reached out. So take that time, reach out. We know it's a tough time. Talk to somebody, anybody. Call Business Link. We're always here to help when you're having struggles in your business.
That's good, Susan. And so I'd like to say thank you, Barbara, for taking time out of your schedule to come and speak with us. Really appreciate getting some insight into you as CEO of Business Link, but also getting to know you as a person over the last little while. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And I definitely will be in contact with you as I'm building out my business, and looking forward to working with Business Link in the future. And again, I'd like to thank you and for your time here.
Well, Alex, thanks for having me. I mean, it's been really great. And I wish you good luck on continuing these and finding some great people to talk to. I know I'll be tuning in. And yeah, good luck on your business. And you know what? I will say it may be hard, but it's also incredibly rewarding to be an entrepreneur.
I definitely concur with that statement.
Great.
Okay. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll sign out and hope to see you in our next event next month.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.